and I just wanted a simple hug from my boyfriend before we went to sleep. I thought, you could give me a hug. I didn't see any wrong in that. I just asked for a hug. So I was like, Kevin, in my little sweet voice, I said, Kevin, like, hey, can I get a hug? And he's like, no. And I said, what's the problem? Like, did I do something? Normally, I don't understand. And mind you, like, when you're working at these camps, like, you are on a spiritual high because you're constantly serving these urban kids, and you're getting fed Jesus, like, all week. And I'm looking at Kevin again. I'm like, maybe I didn't sound sweet enough, or maybe I should stand. Let me, stand. Let me sit up, because maybe he didn't hear me. Your girlfriend is asking for a hug, and I don't see a problem with that. And I was like, man, can I get a hug? He's like, no. I said, okay. And I think it was then I realized this is a man of God who is not afraid to say no to me, so that he can be pleasing to the Lord. And
she was like, you need to let them know that I'm there.
Set boundaries, whether they went out to McDonald's, we're in college, right? That's a date.
Like, I'm not gonna lie, there was temptation there. There was close calls. There were a lot of long embraces that could have ended up in a kiss.
I don't want to start crying. Okay. But I really knew he was there because for my mom to call him and not even call me first. So my mom called him, so that let me know that, okay, we have enough relationship established that my mom would even reach out to you, and she's the first person that, I had other friends on campus, but for her to reach out to you, you know what I mean? That means you really are there for me.
engagement was 1 year. To be honest, I wish it was 2 to 3 months. I'll probably tell other people that.
Well, our engagement was a bit unorthodox. It wasn't the traditional, here's a ring, and then in a year's time or 6 months we'll get married.
Right, and because of during that fast, the Lord spoke to me in a dream and spoke to him that we would be husband and wife. So like during our engagement, I don't know, there was like, that's what I think made it
Back up and share the dream. What happened in the dream?
Well, okay, I'm sorry, but
This is answering the question.
In the dream, Kevin, I was in a car, and I remember getting out and Kevin telling me that I was going to be his wife. And I remember waking up from that, and I was like, ooh. And I was like, well, let me call him. And Kevin was really big on boundaries at that time when we were in college. And I called him, and I was like, hey, can you come over? He's like, I'm not coming over because that means it's just me and you. And he was like, not having it. And I was like, look, we're not going to do anything. I'm just asking for you to come over because I need to share something with you. So he's like, okay. And then he comes over and he says, hey, before you share anything, I just want to let you know that the Lord told me that you had a dream and it was good. And I was like, it was good. And let me tell you what this dream was. And it was awesome. I shared him with the dream. He tried to play it off, but y'all, he was real pressed and happy that I was going to be his wife. And
how did I try to play it off?
Anyway, he was like, that's nice. That's a nice dream. But he was like happy on the inside. But yeah, that's kind of what happened. And then from there, we met with our spiritual father at the time, just to kind of help direct us with the emotions, with the dreams, and all those things.
Yeah.
And yeah. Mm-hmm.
So the engagement was 10 months. We got engaged in January of 2017, and we were married in October of 2017. So a little less than 10 months, because it was like mid-January to the first day of October. What was the second part of the question? What was the wait like?
Yeah.
The wait. Honestly, the wait was just kind of just like the rest of courtship. You have your typical struggles with keeping proper boundaries and just I guess it kind of put an emphasis on understanding like we're gonna be together. We know we're gonna be together, and so you start getting those thoughts of like, wow, this is my spouse. This is the person I'm gonna marry, and that kind of like adds to the temptation to push things further. But it kind of like flew by because we were so focused on the planning aspect and like getting everything together for the wedding. So there's a lot to do for that. Mm-hmm. So that kind of kept us busy in that time.
The engagement was July of 2014, right? And then we got married that February. So during that time, throughout the planning and of course hanging out in college, we had what we consider Pastor Mark our spiritual father and, our mentor for marriage and courtship. And we had the basic boundaries of, not being able to get in the room, not saying out late at a certain time, which we didn't really abide by being in college. But we did remain pure into marriage. But the main thing that we got Pastor Mark was for the guys, like, don't even kiss before marriage. Because once you kiss, then you're already thinking about the next part. So I think us being able to not kiss before getting married helped us to not even get to that next step. But there were times I stayed in the room the whole time. She lost her cousin, passed away in the middle of the night. Her mom called and she's crying. And we're at school and it was just a tragic situation. So I was there kind of the whole time. I slept on the floor and just kind of comforted her during that time. Our rooms were both on campus, so sometimes we were out hanging and talking, but we were able to stay disciplined. We did kind of hug a little.
A little too close to that long.
But thankfully we were able to keep our commitments away to marriage.
Yeah.
And just going to preventive maintenance. Pastor Mark had I think it was once a month, every Saturday morning, they'll talk about pre-marriage and just how to develop ourselves and prepare ourselves before we got married. So I would say that helped a lot.
So that led to, that was in 2009. We started courting in 2010, and we were married in May of 2011. Now, the problem was in spring of 2011, like early on that year, we felt like we got clearance by our premarital counselor, who was our pastor at the time, said, you guys can get married. And we were thinking, okay, well, let's do something quick. We don't need to drag this out. We knew what we wanted, and quite frankly, we didn't want to wait much longer. If you can smell what I'm stepping in,
right?
So
I'm already stepping in.
So we decided to get married, but I hadn't proposed yet. But we kind of already knew that we were seeing each other for marriage. Like we already knew that marriage was next. So we actually got married in a pastor's living room, in one of our pastor's living rooms at the time. And then later that weekend, I actually gave her the ring that I was going to give her to propose with.
And it was really cool because his proposal was so different. And I think it really spoke to me because the proposal was kind of laced with more like my commitment to you. Like I've already made this decision to marry you, but now it's proposing. It's a way that he proposed to me in a way that was like, I want to be committed to you or whatever. And it was awesome. Like it was absolutely, if I had to do it all over again, I would do it just like that.
I set it up super nice. It was like a scavenger hunt. Like she went to clues and ended up finding me on the beach. I was super suave.
He looked so good
on one knee, that sand. The whole deal. So, but honestly, to answer the question, for the purposes of this question, I would say that our engagement, like the season after courtship, lasted maybe a year, right? Like from 2010 to 2011.
Yeah, it was a year.
Maybe 6 months. Probably.
And I think during that time we were trying to keep ourselves busy with like ministry and things like that. But I think it was also challenging. And the reason why was like, okay, we can't keep going on because, communication breeds intimacy. So we're talking more during the day. We're talking more at night. And it was just like, you keep talking to me like this, something might happen. Right. And you keep getting close to me, then something might happen.
So
we need to hurry up.
Let's go and get married.
But yeah, I think that's kind of that's why our engagement was only a year. Like people who do it for 5-6 years, more power to you because I don't know how.
What will make you want to be engaged that long? Like if you know she's the one, or if you know he's the one.
Right.
Not the one like a soulmate deal, but if you guys have agreed and you before the Lord, you say you guys want to marry each other.
Right.
I get some people want to take their time to make sure they're making the right decision. You shouldn't enter into a marriage lightly.
Right. Or you don't want to have debt. I do get that. You're not trying to, because I respect this man who made sure he was out of debt before he married. I respect that.
Wasn't me, but I respect the guys who can do that.
Yes.
We was ready to get married.
We were just ready to get married. We'll deal with that later. So.
And we're dealing with it now.
We're dealing with it now.
So.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think the wait was 7 months, right? Yeah. So it was.
Well, we also dated a whole year before that too, so I think the whole wait was almost 2 years.
Yeah, so almost 2 years. So it was pretty fun, like growing together and developing that emotional connection and getting, just talking and really being genuine friends, and then allowing that relationship to, slowly develop and manifest into other things later after marriage, of course. So I think it was tough sometimes because like you want to hug and stuff like that, but that night of that tragedy where he's talking about my cousin, I was like, I don't care what anybody think. Nobody's here for me right now. My family wasn't there. I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't want my roommates to assume otherwise. Things were, but I didn't have anybody there. So he had came and stayed over, slept on the floor, and I was like, okay. But I was really up the whole night crying. But that was the only night I can think of that we really overstepped the boundaries with him spending the night, but we didn't do anything. Grateful, thankfully, I was devastated. But outside of that, I think we had support systems outside of Pastor Mark. We would go to other couples that will also help us, because I do think community is important, because if you don't have it, who's holding you accountable, right? So I did have other sisters in Christ who were already married and shared their story of how they set boundaries, whether they went out to McDonald's. We're in college, right? That's a date. Or like for Adele and I like the water, so we would go to Ocean City. It's a open space. Go to the National Harbor. I like the waves of the water, so we would do dates like that, even though they'd be at night, but they're in public places. So just little snippets, small things like that. But definitely when he had to drive me back home and I got out of the car, I'm like, okay, I gotta run. but like we would definitely hug too much, and it was like, okay, we're getting too close, like gotta go now. But like I said, I think the most important thing was, am I committed to the Lord first, which I really was. I already dealt with enough heartbreak to know what it's like to be on the other side. And because I was so committed on the Lord, I was like, I don't want anything to get in the way. So that's how serious I was about my relationship with the Lord. So I was committed, and I committed to the Lord that I wouldn't settle, so, and compromise, so I think that was our waiting game, and it was cool, like really nice.
Yeah, I guess I would agree. The wait was definitely, it was hard, just because of kind of like the same thing Jarrell said about how, what was it? He said, like, you kind of start to think like, okay, this is the person I'm gonna be with. So sometimes you get a little too comfortable, and and that definitely would like bite us in the butt a lot, because Jarrell would like come over and hang out, but he also worked like nights, so sometimes he'd need to take a nap at my house and stuff like that. And like we would make sure there was extra boundaries, like so that like I wouldn't be tempted to even go near wherever he was sleeping. But it definitely like, it was nice because we were starting to get that feeling. It was like the excitedness of like, oh my gosh, like this is the person I'm gonna marry. But then at the same time, you like definitely really need to be on guard when you both are definitely making that choice, because like it could end up that you don't get married. And like we had those same thoughts too, like like what, even though we're engaged and we plan to get married, like something could happen and it could lead us to decide like maybe this isn't the best choice for us right now, or maybe being together isn't the best choice for us. but praise God it wasn't, and we did get married.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so those kind of things are really tough during like that courtship, like engagement phase,
Mm-hmm.
especially engagement, because you feel like it's so set in stone, and like, or you feel like it's set in stone, and like I said earlier, like you like you're comfortable now, so you're like, that's basically my spouse already.
Mm-hmm. You're sitting together on the couch.
You can sit closer,
staying way later than you need to.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, we definitely struggle with that a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I think one good point, Kevin and I used to work at this Christian sports camp, and it was called Kids Across America. Shout out to KA. And we at this camp, you were able to take a 2-4. So you were able to get you work 6 weeks, but then you take 6 days, and then you take 1 day off. And there was one particular day, Kevin and I took a 2-4 together. We call them 2-4s. And we essentially hung out all day, and then obviously you gotta go to sleep somewhere. And we knew, like, okay, we can't do a hotel, like that's just awkward, we can't do that. So we ended up staying at my friend's house, and we were in a living room. So Kevin was on one side, I was on another side, and I just wanted a simple hug from my boyfriend before we went to sleep. I thought, you could give me a hug. I didn't see any wrong in that. I just asked for a hug. So I was like, Kevin, in my little sweet voice, I said, Kevin, like, hey, can I get a hug? And he's like, no. And I said, what's the problem? Like, did I do something? Normally, I don't understand. And mind you, like, when you're working at these camps, like, you are on a spiritual high because you're constantly serving these urban kids, and you're getting fed Jesus, like, all week. And I'm looking at Kevin again. I'm like, maybe I didn't sound sweet enough, or maybe I should stand. Let me, stand. Let me sit up. Because maybe he didn't hear me. Your girlfriend is asking for a hug, and I don't see a problem with that. And I was like, can I get a hug? He's like, no. I said, okay. And I think it was then I realized this is a man of God who is not afraid to say no to me, so that he can be pleasing to the Lord. And I knew that day, which made that night even harder and made him even more attractive, was you were willing to exercise self-control to me. And I know how I am. And the fact that you're able to do that now tells me you will do it in our marriage. You'll do it with my kids, that you will always choose Christ over me. And I know that's what allowed our marriage to stand. That's how I know that Kevin was so considerate of my spiritual walk. And that's when I knew I am willing to come up under my Father's authority to now be under your authority, because you will look out for me spiritually, emotionally, and mentally and physically. Because that night could have went another way if Kevin lacked self-control, and that would have shown me, oh, well, you like every other Christian man. Once you get close, then that's it. But that night just made Kevin like, wow, I not only want you, now I really want to marry you and have your kids, because you are just absolutely amazing. And I respect the man that's willing to follow the Lord and not his heart, essentially. And that right there is probably the most attractive guy still to this day, a man who follows God and not his heart, because he is serious about Jesus. And I think that's what's important. And that's what's necessary. And yeah, I think from then I knew you're gonna care. You're gonna care for me, and still to this day, you're gonna shepherd me in that way. So that's a
really good one.
Yeah,
that's a really good answer, babe.
I really felt that he was there. I don't want to start crying. It's too deep. Okay, but I really knew he was there because for my mom to call him and not even call me first. So my mom called him. So that let me know that, okay, we have enough relationship established that my mom would even reach out to you. And she's the first person that, I had other friends on campus, but for her to reach out to you, you know what I mean? That means you really are there for me. And it's not just, I think from my side, like I said, I've been in past relationships where all it was my looks, right? Like, and that only gets you past hello. So it's kind of like I felt in that moment like this is genuine. You know what I mean? Somebody really likes me for who I am, not just for what they see on the outside. And that's why I feel like we have a stronger bond, because we were really close friends, and I was able to see in that moment, like how you're saying, he was able to really just be there. You know what I'm saying? And I never really, I don't know if I experienced that in on that level with a guy necessarily. Um, and for him to even be in his room and come all the way to where, like, I was kind of like, they would call it off campus housing, for him to do that, for even to the point where he has to approach the security guard and let him know, like, I need to get in here. You know what I mean? So for you to kind of like, in a sense, go out of your way to kind of fight for me to, you know, make sure I'm comforted, like, that spoke a lot. You know what I'm saying? Because I think you were about to get in trouble, right? Your car was about to get towed. I don't know what happened.
They don't let you in past, I think, 10 p.m. The gates are, unless you have the car pass. I try to sneak in the bag, and he came.
He tried to do everything.
He followed me. I was like, all right, look, my girlfriend lost her mind. And he's like, all right, go ahead, man.
He was trying to do everything to get in. He didn't have no card or nothing. He was trying to sneak in. Yeah. So, but that let me know he's going out of his way. He's dedicated. And just wanted to not see me in that place of devastation. Like I said, my family was not there. They were 2.5 hours away. So, in that moment, I could definitely see the care and how much he loved me.
Kind of in our in our circle of Christianity, it was kind of encouraged that you should keep brother-sister boundaries until you're married, because the logic was, if you're not married, when you're married, you're one. So if you're not married, you're not one. So what does that make you? It makes you brother and sister. There's no boyfriend and girlfriend in the Bible. Mm-hmm. So we kind of like tried to keep it to that. So that meant whatever you would do with your sister, that's how you treat your person in courtship. And like, I'm not gonna lie, there was temptation there. There was close calls. There were a lot of long embraces that could have ended up in a kiss that we had to pull away from. But we definitely kept that boundary of no kissing, nothing further than that.
Yeah, we had a few, because we met with Pastor Mark about a couple times, and also when we were here after we graduated, we went to VCMI's Elder Bell, and they just put out, the top 3 areas of failures in marriage, which is communication, money, and sex. So just knowing that in advance and being able to talk about that to make sure we're on the same page. Of course, a whole lot of other things, deal breakers, petty things that we all have that took us off, helped us build that foundation and be prepared for what we're going into.
We definitely, we try our hardest, to uphold the boundaries what we had said, just because we really wanted to honor God with our relationship and our marriage. Like, we had seen people do things like all different kinds of ways in our family and just stuff that wasn't Christ honoring, and we wanted to be the exception. So we pushed, even though we did have moments where we had temptations and we felt way too close to the line. Pastor Mark calls it like playing the too far game. We definitely played the too far game and almost lost the too far game, or won the too far game. Anyway, lost. You don't want to do it. Would be a loss regardless. So we definitely had those moments, but I praise God we could still honor Him even in our temptations. We were still able to finally make those boundaries. Finally meet the end of those boundaries, which was get married and be able to kiss and all of that stuff. So yeah,
I would definitely say we had a couple of counseling sessions that just really opened our eyes. And I think also, like I said, we had other couples that were older than us, just pouring into us, that community factor. I do think it's important for couples to go to counseling, because in marriage it's 2 different mindsets, 2 different people trying to become one, and right, 2 becoming one, does that even make sense, right? So it's like this whole one person and this other person, you guys are 2 different, completely different people. And so I think what counseling does is help you get a foundation and help you understand one another, because certain conversations would not have been sparked if we did not go to counseling, like around sex, around finances, things that we never maybe thought to ask. You know what I mean? So that when you get married, you're like, hold up, I didn't sign up for this. Yes, you did. You just didn't know. You know what I mean? So I think that's what counseling does. Even to be honest, after marriage, you still need it, because I think it's a tool to keep you again grounded and keep you goal focused and vision focused. Like, why did you get married? You know what I mean? That's a constant question. And are you committed? You know what I mean? So I think counseling, or what I do on the side, life coaching, which I hope one day we do together, to coach couples. And I don't know everything, but I know enough of 5 years, right? So I think, like I said, even after marriage, counseling and coaching or whatever is still as important, because you're still becoming one. And you change, your spouse change, and life happens, kids in the mix of that. So you still have to adapt to all of the things that life throws at you.
Yeah, BJ from the retreat mentioned a good point where a lot of times, instead of taking preventive measures, we wait till stuff happens and then be what's the word?
Crisis.
Yeah, or be proactive. But it's been always best to, take their counseling to prevent things rather than wait till something goes wrong and then you're all in therapy trying to deal with a tough situation. So definitely pre-marriage counseling, even while you're married, even when you're early on in your marriage, get connected with other like-minded couples.
Yeah.
To build that foundation in defense instead of waiting till something goes wrong.
Yeah, because I think that's very true. Because we went to a couples retreat. I think those are important too. If you can just have your getaway with you and your spouse, those are really important. You making that time commitment to do that. That's pouring into your marriage, because there's so many like life distractions that's just tugging you this way, that way. You know what I mean? We have responsibilities. We have a daughter. All these outside things, right? And if we're not intentional about this, it can easily just dissolve. And so what he mentioned about BJ, where we went to a conference, he was just explaining how, it's premarital counseling, and then in the middle is figure it out, right? And then at the end it's a crisis. Let's go to counseling. And it's like in the middle is just figure it out. And it's like, that's the place of counseling, sharpening your marriage, coaching, doing all what you can so that when life does happen, you know how to respond. And that way you're not in crisis mode where you're just about to break it. You know what I'm saying? Because the reality is life will happen and you don't know what lemons will be thrown at you. And so to make lemonade, counseling, life coaching is often awesome. So
I don't have an answer like that good. That's no, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying I don't have it. I'm not saying that. It's just you did it.
Clearly, they know you were saved. I wasn't.
No, that was very good. You articulated that very well.
Well,
I think what I'm trying to say is, I appreciate that. Yeah. I think I knew that she had my best interest at heart and that she was committed and for your boy. When I was doing music, she would, wait, why you say, oh gosh? What's
Good.
You know what story I'm about to tell?
I'm trying to figure out which one.
No, I think it's more of what happens. It's not even necessarily one particular thing.
Okay.
Am I missing something?
No, good.
All right, tell me interject.
I got you.
So she
let you think about it.
She would come she would come to the shows and be up front, and she would actually give me a hard time if I didn't shout her out from the stage. She was like, you need to let them know that I'm there, because I want them to know that you're taken and that you're mine. And so what I heard my wife saying is, I'm with you, and I'm the one that married you, and so therefore we need to let it be known that your girl is up front, and I'm loud, and I'm Casey's biggest fan. So she would do that, and then she would actually, like, I try to do everything by myself, and so anytime Talera would say, how can I help? Let me call, let me set up the show, let me work with the design team for shirts, or let me how can I help move things along so that you can be your best. To me, that was unprecedented. Somebody who was so willing to support me regardless of what I was doing. That's when I think those moments confirmed for me that she had my best interest and always will have my best interest at heart, even when I don't think it's like, well, I can do that. No, let me help. So that's probably what I would say for that. Yeah, I can't think of a better one.
That's what's like hard.
No, but I'm sure there's like a number of other instances where I was like, yeah, it'll probably hit me more. Like,
probably will.
So once the camera's on, I'm like, yeah, Zach, put that thing back on.
The fact that I'm still here says a lot.
There you go. That works too.
It does.
She's still here, right?
Still here.